Here we go. If I've got any chocolate around my lips, please forgive me. I've had a bad day today.
Oh,
Please. Okay,
emergency
good.
chocolate then.
Sorry?
Emergency chocolate, first aid chocolate, is it?
Oh, yeah, here you go.
Nice.
Right, okay, so good afternoon, everybody. And if you're listening out there, welcome. Wasn't that good just now? I was listening to a song just now on the radio there. And thank you very much for Paul for that. But guess what? It's Beth. Beth's back. Beth, what are you talking about today?
I'm talking about how we draw a line between needing someone and someone needing you and being needy.
Ooh. But Beth, we all want to be needy, don't we?
We all want to be needed, did you say?
Yeah, needy as well.
I don't know, do we? Is that what you think?
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, we all want to be needy sometime, don't we? Don't you?
Yeah. Well, you see, obviously, I come on the show and talk about, my perspective, which is trying to have healthy relationships, having had unhealthy relationships. And so I guess, I don't have a normal point of view. I guess it skews my thinking. And, when I went into my current relationship, I was determined not to do any needing of any sort. I
Oh,
was
right.
determined to. I felt fine wanting him and wanting things from him, but not needing, because I think, to me, if you need something from someone, then you're kind of trusting them to give you something that you can't otherwise give yourself, and that just felt like too much trust for me at
Well,
the
but the
beginning.
trouble is, so in a relationship, kind of, um, in the relationship on trust, every relationship's got to be on trust, isn't it?
Absolutely, it has. Yeah, which is why it's so difficult for survivors and of abuse and trauma to have happy relationships, because they do find trust and intimacy really, really difficult. And yeah, so it's definitely something I've had to work on, because once I fell in love, I thought, like you said at the beginning of this, yeah, it would be nice to lean on someone a little bit from time to time, to just have someone who's kind of got your back, to feel like there's a little bit of a safety net there, to not be completely self reliant, because self reliance and sort of being independent and strong um, is great. But sometimes it's lonely and sometimes it's exhausting,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is lovely to do the whole problem shared is problem halved thing, and to just get, reassurance and advice and that sort of thing from somebody that you love and trust. So yeah, absolutely. So I got that, and then since then I've had to learn how to actually do it, how to do needing.
So, Beth, before we carry on,
Mm.
I'm going to ask you a question. Are you in love?
Yeah, you know this, Steve.
Are you really in love?
Yeah. Are you?
Well, I used to be. Until she until
Poor
she
old
went off with another man, and that was it.
Michelle.
Beth, how dare you do that to me? Anyway, no, but the trouble is, yeah, we all, I think we all be, I think we all are needed at some point, and the trouble is, when we have a new relationship and we fall in love with somebody, we come to a point sometimes that we've got to start trusting again. But it's hard because if we've been out in the past, like both of us are, it's difficult to trust and also to be kind of like really what can I say, fully in the relationship. That's why I said to you just now about, are you really in love? Because sometimes we can say that we're in love, but we're not, because we're afraid to kind of like get deeper into love because we don't want to get hurt again.
Yeah, you're right. And I absolutely kind of, for me, the proof of the pudding that I'm in love is that I am willing to tackle all this scary stuff that I wouldn't otherwise be willing to do. So I didn't think I had it all sorted in my head, right? So I do a lot of, obviously I'm a coach, but I also have coaching, myself, because I'm constantly on my own personal development journey. And I had it all straight in my head that the only person you need to trust is yourself.
Yeah.
And, if you love yourself, then, you've kind of got everything you actually need, all the validation, all the affection, all the reassurance, all the self-esteem and self-confidence that you actually need. And therefore, you don't actually need another person in your life, but it's not actually as simple as that. It's not as simple as that in reality. And so as I've fallen in love, I've realized that actually if I want to have a full relationship, a proper, because those of us that have been damaged, we still deserve the fairy tale. We still deserve to have a completely healthy, full on, amazing, passionate, romantic, wonderful
Mhm.
relationship. It's just unfortunately much harder for us to achieve because of the damage, etc. So it's getting and I believe I deserve that. So I'm very much working on achieving that. Um, but yeah, so I mean, basically, and just to say also that at some point we should talk about needing and neediness in other contexts, because it's not just in relationships. It sometimes comes up at work.
Mhm.
People are called needy at work and things. So that can also be an issue. But um,
But
so, so
what point do we say, right, okay, it's all right for needing somebody, and kind of like and being it, but at one point where we got to kind of like, where do we stop? At what point?
when do we stop needing them?
Yeah.
Well, you see, that's the thing, is that when you actually start talking about it, um, I realize there's actually sort of two things there. One is what you need from a relationship, and the other thing is what you require from a relationship. Now, those two things are slightly different, I reckon. So what I need from a relationship is, I do sometimes need, advice, reassurance, just that feeling that, so my partner said to me, I don't really particularly want to be needed, but you can be sure that if you need me, I'll absolutely be there, right?
Mm.
Um, and so there's that, but then there's requiring, right? So like I require, like, and it's okay to require your partner to love you. It's okay to require them to turn up when they say they're going to turn up, to keep promises they make, those sorts of things. So they're kind of like, they're a different thing from
Mm.
having emotional needs met. Requirements are more kind of, well, these are the guidelines, these are the sort of the kind of the
Mm.
rules of our relationship, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
again, need isn't quite a simple concept. So there's those sort of two parts of that.
Yeah.
um
But the trouble is, so you've been through a lot. So when you kind of like got into another, when you decided to go into another relationship with a man,
mm.
what did you want out of it? Did you want the kind of like, were you afraid to get into another relationship? Did you?
Yeah, I was afraid to get into a relationship that to me meant that my personality, my independence, my freedom would be subsumed and lost.
Yeah.
Because of course I'm very used to being needed and over needed in a
Yeah.
relationship. So that's the
Yeah.
other side of the coin, you know.
Mm.
Um, and again, as I've become healthier, I've realized, I've put some boundaries in place about that. Obviously you don't really have to in a healthy relationship, but I've realized in past relationships how much I was I was just like sort of workhorse, the scapegoat, the person who provided so much for my partner, that perhaps it wasn't fair to really ask of me. But because I had low self-esteem at the time, it just felt good to be needed, if you see what I mean. I sort of thought, oh, I must be worth something because somebody
You are
needs
worth of it.
me.
We all love you, Beth. You know that.
Thank you, and I get that now. But yeah, so there's that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, so at first I basically had this. I think I've said it on here before, but I had this whole thing about yeah, I want my next partner to be like a cat. So cats basically, they just do their own thing. They're kind of okay with you as long as you feed them and stuff, but essentially, and they'll show you love from time to time, but essentially they basically just do their own thing. And my ambition was to be totally sort of independent and self-reliant enough to be able to have a man in my life, but to not need him to do anything or be anything to make me happy. And I still believe that it's not my partner's job to make me happy, right? It's my job to make me happy, right? And ultimately, it's my partner's job to just be my partner, right? To not have to be anybody else that I want him to be. For everyone should just be allowed to be loved for themselves, as long as they're not, running absolutely abusive behaviors or anything like that. But if they're basically a decent person, you just need to take them as they are, because nobody's perfect, none of us is. But I mean, what I look back at that now and think, oh my God, how ridiculous was that? How ridiculous is it to think that you can have an intimate relationship with somebody where they're basically like a cat and they just come and go and maybe show you a bit of affection or maybe not, and they just do their own thing. I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's kind of where I was at, because I was really defending like all the healing work I'd done to myself. So I was kind of like, I've got me sorted now and I can welcome a man into my life, but I need to protect this me that I've created, that I've healed. And of course, the truth is, if I'm really healed, then I don't need to protect. I don't need that wall. I can let that wall down and still be me and still have a healthy relationship. So that's the challenge that I've been working with for the last.
So you want a man. So you want a man, right? Who wants to love you, but also wants to be a cat. And when he wants to go to the loo, when he wants to go to a loo, he's got to have a little tray by him.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see, that's the reality, isn't it? Wouldn't it be awful if a man was like a cat? Because then there you go, there's another job straight away I've got to do, is emptying the bloody litter tray all the time. So yeah, no, that's not what I want. No. But anyway, so yeah, so he and I have had quite a lot of interesting conversations about what requirements are, what needs are, and kind of like the two different kinds of needs. So he's like, yeah, I'll be absolutely there for you if you need me. And it's cool to need things from time to time, right? But that's different from having an ongoing need or using the relationship to kind of meet a deficit in somebody else, right? People sometimes say, oh, I need a partner to complete me, to make me whole, right? The thing is, you're whole on your own, and if you don't feel that, then there's more work for you to do, right? But my sort of philosophy is that for me, having a partner is the glacé cherry on top of my already delicious iced bun of a life.
Wow.
So I'd be happy with just the icing and the bun, but the cherries also are nice to have. It's really lovely to have, and it does make it even more delicious. So yeah.
Right, I'll get a cherry bakewell next week.
Nice. It's cherry bakewell season, isn't it? It's sort of a spicy autumnal cake, really. I'm absolutely a big fan of cakes. So yeah, and so we get to needy now. So needy. Now, the first thing I want to say about needy is that in my book, but I'm welcome for other people to shout me down here. In my book, needy is a patriarchal term because it's most usually used in relation to women, right? It's women are usually described as needy, not men. Now, I could be wrong, but that's my experience. That's my impression, right? It's usually men saying it about women. Sometimes men get called demanding but that's a different thing from needy. Needy is a bit more sort of whingy, whining, oh, please make me feel better about such and such. Whereas demanding is more like, I require this, I want you to do that. Different things, really. I'm reminded of when I was an HR manager. I had a career in HR management, and quite a lot of times, and it was usually a male manager, not always, I have to say, but usually a male manager who would describe usually a female employee or colleague as needy. Yeah. And often it was just because the manager was being crap and wasn't prepared to give evaluations, wasn't prepared to give feedback, wasn't prepared to do the actual work of people management. They weren't prepared to motivate, to guide, to encourage, to praise, all of these complex and very necessary skills when you're trying to get the maximum out of an employee, out of a team, out of a department. Because people are, even though capitalism doesn't seem to believe that, but people are the most important asset that any business has. And so absolutely, to do proper people management, you need to have those skills and be having that kind of rapport with an employee. And so, so needy, right? Okay. So that's basically seen as a negative thing. And, people of any gender basically can come to rely too much on their partner to meet their needs, and this becomes unhealthy, right? So how do we decide which side of the line you're on? Are you just needing something reasonably from your partner, or are you being needy, right? So I think really it may be your partner who gets to decide that to some sort of degree. So if your partner who maybe
Really, I thought that would be down to the woman, wouldn't it?
well, the thing is that I feel that it's a subjective thing, right? It's a subjective thing, and the person who calls needy is the person who's feeling they're needed too much, right? Okay, so it's difficult for, like, say, me to assess whether I'm needy or not, right? I'll most likely know that I'm needy, or the term needy will be mentioned most likely by my partner first, right? Okay. Because it's usually their response to however a partner's behaving, if you see what I mean. So it's like, I've written some notes here. So maybe they're feeling over relied upon and they're not okay with it. It's a subjective label because what they think is needy and what you think is needy could be two different things, right? So let's say you expect your partner to text you every day to tell you that they love you. So what, like, you live together, but he's gone to work or whatever, and you expect them to text every day saying, oh, I love you, I'm missing you today while I'm at work, right? Now, some people might think that that's needy, and some people might think that that's fine, right? Let's say you expect your partner to let you know how they're feeling, right? What emotions are going on for them. Is that needy, or is that acceptable? Is that a reasonable request? So the definition of needy from each partner will be different, right, according to their own inner handbook of how relationships should be run. Because this is the thing with everything in life, right? We all have our own inner handbook of how stuff should be done. So, like, how we should do our jobs, how we should greet people in the street, how we should treat our family, how we should parent our kids, how we should run a relationship. And that inner handbook has been compiled from a lifetime of experiences, good and bad, and also educational and cultural and religious and parental influences, right? So we have a whole load of rules, and we're often not aware that we've got these rules. We only know that we've got the rule if someone kind of breaks it, and then we're like, hang on, I'm triggered about, hang on, why did you, that's the only time sometimes when we first realize we've got all these rules and someone isn't living up to our expectations, right? But they're not necessarily doing anything wrong objectively. It's just they've got a completely different handbook with a different set of rules. I think I explained this last time. So how do you therefore define needy? Because one person's set of rules is going to be different from another person's. And the only thing you can really do about this is talk about it, to actually say, okay, so you think I'm being needy. So what is exactly that I'm doing that's creating that feeling for you. You know, the only thing to do is to talk it out really, and sort of go, oh, okay, so you think that's a bit too much to ask. You see, in my family, we always do that for each other, and that's no problem. You know, it's just about exploring it. It's definitely worth doing in a relationship. Another thing, sort of about, quite closely related to neediness, I would say, is codependency. I don't know if people have spoken about this recently on your show, but essentially, this is kind of where you're both needy with each other, right? So one partner, for instance, may seem strong and protective, and the other may seem anxious, right? But in reality, both are in a symbiotic relationship, relying on the other person to meet a really important need, right? And validating them as a person by doing that. This kind of need can only really be properly and permanently met by yourself. So it goes back to what I said before about really those kinds of needs. You have to work on yourself to meet those. But so basically, it's like the anxious partner maybe needs reassurance and protection from the strong one, okay? But in turn, the strong one needs the anxious person to need them, right? So that they can be all strong and protective, and therefore feel validated by being able to provide that for the other person, right?
Does that come under being what's it, dependent?
Yes, codependent. This is
Yeah.
classic codependency, is kind of mutual neediness. Now,
All right. Okay. Sorry.
it's not necessarily a problem,
Right.
right? If everybody's happy with how that's working, if both partners are happy with how that's working. But the problem comes when one person wants to grow and change, right? Doesn't want to play that role anymore of being the strong one or being the anxious one, right?
Right.
So it
Okay.
stops the anxious person from actually developing their own inner reassurance, growing and tackling their anxiety, right? And it stops the strong person from being able to be vulnerable, from being able to receive that reassurance from themselves, which also, it feels nice. It feels nice, as you say. It's nice
Excellent. That's
to need stuff.
excellent. Thank you.
So essentially, codependency is definitely something that's worth going and talking to an expert about, because it usually becomes problematic and can be limiting to both partners. It can become toxic. So it's definitely worth seeking some advice about that.
Okay.
So I just want to suggest to anybody who's going to watch this, just like a fun little exercise to do with your partner. So you do it on your own first. It's just like an audit of need. It's like a need audit, right? So there's four little things to think about, right? So the first one is, what do you require of your partner? So not needs, but kind of how do you want them to show up in the relationship? What do you need them to do, require them to do if they're going to be a proper partner? So, turning up on time for things, keeping promises, saying they love you, whatever, that kind of thing, right?
Right. Okay. Washing.
Sorry?
Washing up. My washing. Cooking. Cleaning. That'll do me. Thank you very much. No, Beth.
Yeah.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
I know. All right. So that's requirements. So one is, what do you require of your partner? Two is, what needs do you expect them to fulfill, right? So that's slightly different, okay? Slightly different things. So that might be more like validation or reassurance or, things like that, okay? Three is, what needs are you expecting to fulfill for them? That can be an interesting one. In your rule book, what's required of you, do you think, to have a healthy relationship? And then four is, what does needy look like to you? So what is your personal definition of what needy is? So answer those questions on your own first, and then go and talk about, and get your partner to do it as well, and then talk through the answers together. And you can do this if you're single as well. In fact, it's great to do it if you're single. I coach a lot of women who are dating, and it's like why do I keep ending up with the same bozo? Why do I? Oh, how can I find someone? Yeah, and a lot of it is consciously thinking about what your expectations for the relationship are, what your requirements are, what your needs are, etc. So, and it's much easier to start a relationship off right than to be in a relationship that's gone wrong in any respect and then to try and change it. It's like turning the tide. So anyone who's single seeing this, absolutely do this and have in your mind first, as you go into meeting someone new, what your answers to these questions are, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal,
Yeah,
isn't it? Needing and
yeah,
feeling needed and all that sort of thing. It's a really important dynamic in any sort of relationship. So yeah, so that's my kind of little tip, sort of fun exercise. The nights are drawing in, the clocks are going to go back. What do you do? We might go into lockdown again. There's a fun little exercise to pass the time.
yeah. Do it on Halloween night. Get divorced,
Yeah,
be all
it
right.
might be very scary. Some of the answers might be terrifying. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But the trouble is, Beth, when we kind of like the trouble is when somebody is really needy in a relationship,
Mm,
sometimes also attention comes into it because they've probably not been getting that much attention
yeah.
from their partner.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what
I
can
think.
what can happen?
Yeah, that's a big need for people, is to be seen, to feel heard, to receive compliments. That attention can look like anything. And of course, what you can have, somebody who needs attention like that, they can often be what we call narcissistic, and they'll often kick off in order to get the attention, because everybody gets kind of compassion fatigue in a long-term relationship. And someone who needs attention and validation from a partner can start over time to behave in a more and more toxic way
Mm.
to get the attention. It's like they've got to up the ante a little bit each more, cause more of a scene, be louder, say worse things, whatever it
Is,
is,
is
to
that
get
proof
that
that they
attention.
love them? Is that because they're searching for proof that they love them?
Well, so for the person who's doing that behavior, that might be the response they're wanting to get from the partner. And if
Yeah.
the partner says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can see you're really upset. I love you," then yeah, maybe that's the response they're trying to get, and maybe the person kicking off then feels loved because their partner said that. But God knows what that's doing to the poor partner, who
Yeah. Yeah.
just saying, sometimes just saying "I love you" to that person isn't enough. It has to be a state of high passion. It's a state of high emotion. There has to be like an intensity there for the partner to believe that it's real, that it's really meant by the other
Yeah.
partner, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's a really good
Yeah. Yeah.
example of
Um,
how needs can.
Angela just contacted me and she said, "Actually, thank you very much for this. My partner thinks my partner wants to be needing all the time. He wants this and he wants that. How do I how do I sort this out? Because sometimes it gets me really down."
Yeah, hi Angela. Yeah, I totally understand, yeah, or why that can be, really difficult, really draining, in a relationship, because also if someone's perpetually needing, if you can't ever satisfy those needs for very long, then that's really depressing and really exhausting, because you think, oh God, I thought they were fine. No, I've got to, right, something else now, And again, that's far too much of a burden on you, Angela.
Mm.
So essentially, I don't know if you feel you could run this audit. I mean, I would certainly suggest that you sit down and run it for yourself, because it might help you to put into words kind of what's wrong, like where the line is for you, where he's currently crossing it, and where it's okay. Because you may find that it's limited to a couple of situations, and you might be able to do something about that.
Mm.
So whenever there's a problem in a relationship, getting more information about it, and getting a clearer understanding of how it's impacting you, can be a really great first step, because then you can order your thoughts more, perhaps if you then decide to speak to your partner about these behaviors that he's running at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a needy person. I think if I ask my wife Michelle, she'd probably say yeah. But I don't. But the trouble is with Michelle is that she goes, if I need something, she said, get it yourself.
Yeah, but you see, how do you know you're needy? Who says? Do you say? Has your partner said? Has an ex-partner said? This is the thing we've got to be careful of. Who defines Steve's neediness? Who's labelled that?
Mm. I
I'm
reckon
just
I
saying,
have really.
and it doesn't need to necessarily be a problem. You do get couples, particularly more traditional couples, where one partner's happy to run around for the other person, and so it's not
Mm,
necessarily an issue. But if it becomes an issue at any time, then these are the things to look at, and this is the conversation that needs to be had.
mm, yeah. Okay, Beth. Thank you very much. That was really interesting. That was. And don't forget, guys, I've been kind of like sharing Beth's on our website and everything. And also, we got emails for Beth if you want to contact her. And also a website. And thank you so much. Thank you.
It's a pleasure as always. Take care, everyone. Bye, Steve.
Bye bye. Bye.